You're in a hotel room. You've got nothing better off to do than to actually use the TV and check out what they have. And you discover a masterpiece of a movie. Something new that never crossed your mind or ever referenced by your friends. A movie that is the Addams Family animated. Yes, I discovered the Addams Family animated and actually watched it. It was a franchise I slightly knew about since the original 1991 movie was repeatedly recommended on Netflix, and now seeing the movie is animated, it'll be just good vibes to the story. Until it unexpectedly ended, I had no idea what even the climax of it was, and it never even hit me that it was even a box office movie. While I can't say anything to praise about its execution, I will give it credit though for encouraging me to watch the original 90s Addams Family movies, which eventually made me discover this. It wasn't the first time I discovered the musical, as I listened to one of its numbers in YouTube recommendations, which I never really got further to see the rest of the musical. The Addams Family Musical is a musical that had a Chicago tryout before making its debut in 2010 into the big stage of Broadway, curated by people like Marshall Brickman, Rick Ellis, and composer Andrew Leeper. It only ran for 20 months, but has adapted itself into different casts and tours along the years. While I didn't have a strong obsession with actors like Nathan Lane, as I don't keep track of Broadway and I only watched and listened to it a decade after its launch, but he plays the character very convincingly, and that opening number already got me hooked. The number introduces us towards our characters, or should I say family, with their uniqueness from the rest of society, what interests them, how they see the world, and their types of leisure. Even if you're disconnected from the franchise like I was, the opening number had everything you needed to know about our cast of characters to progress the story in the musical. And I have to admit, when watching Addams Family Values, I have to say the scariest thing about them is to see Wednesday smile. And you might expect that Wednesday's temperament would follow with the musical. However, this time, Wednesday has a date and wants to be normal. I do see how people perceive it as a very cliche plotline, but coming from the Addams, I think that's abnormal. The other characters also portray a personality very different from the original movies and comics. Wednesday is way older than her brother Pugsley, apparently. Morticia loses that demeaning tone, and there were rough edges about the musical, how it deviates into a topic for aging.
Have we wasted our lives?
So, the movies are not the best basis of comparison when it comes to this musical, but it's nice seeing a different perspective of how the Addams act in a different circumstance. And since it's a musical, I think I can let those personality differences pass, given that we've also associated an 1800s politician to hip-hop. But they could have nailed it by relating their characters back to their shows. If you're wanting an Addams Family musical that ties closely with the movies, this may not be for you.
And who is this Lucas fella?
The story basically revolves around Wednesday growing up and showing affection for Lucas, an Ohioan boy just so happened to wander into Central Park, which led to the discourse between their families when they were planning to have a little dinner. I do argue that there is an incoherent pacing to the story since we never really knew how Wednesday and Lucas met or find themselves perfect for each other when they have very contrasting characteristics.
No, but see, the lover always comes back. Ulysses, Tristan, Romeo.
Look, I'm homeschooled. What's your point?
Which would have been a nice storyline to go from. Either way, after the opening number, Wednesday starts off with her solo number, Pulled, describing her quick shift of reality as she realized her affection for Lucas. Obviously, the Addams hated the idea of trying to act out for the dinner, trying to be normal, with one of the more popular numbers, One Normal Night. This never gets old. It takes both sides of the Addams and Lucas's family while recounting the atypical things the families had done. Fester was the only one on board with the idea, while Gomez and Morticia tried to distance themselves from Wednesday. Meanwhile, Pugsley is afraid her sister might stray away from ever playing with him again, retrieving a potion from his grandmother to change that, planning to sneak it in on Wednesday's drink. And at the table, both families play a game of full disclosure, where they reveal a secret of their lives after downing from the Addams Family chalice. A drinking game with consequences. Full Disclosure was a number that mixed between dialogue and music, and it feels well blended when Fester and Pugsley took the lead as different instrumental pieces played for each of them, reflecting on their motivations. Fester being accompanied by Claire de Lune for his asexual love for the moon. It turned to chaos once Alice, Lucas's mother, drank Pugsley's potion by mistake, prompting them to leave, before Fester and the Addams ancestors summon a storm, leaving them stuck together in the house. Well, there's a wingman like no other.
What up?
It's needed to be said that this musical is one of those where the instrumental pieces for these numbers are as enjoyable to listen on their own, and the numbers are scored uniquely with who is singing it. Wednesday has the more modern pop type of numbers. Morticia and Gomez have that old school 1900s type of era atmosphere put to them, Gomez leaning to the Latin type of songs. It's a distinction barely noticeable the first time listening to it. And I admit, the Broadway version has several pacing issues that left some characters forgotten, and there are very huge changes between the revisions of this musical that will be used in future tours and productions. It's very preferable to go with the revised versions of it, with several new songs to fix some of that problem. It covers a bunch of short, solo numbers by Gomez, which would have highlighted his change in perspective for Wednesday in Act 2. And I have to bring out the musical number, Secrets. I still think it's very overlooked and underrated on its message about the sacred marriage between Gomez and Morticia, with the brilliant lyrics and allegories that come with it. Just how different the Addams are at face value towards Alice. The revised version would also take out the interaction of Gomez and Mal, Lucas's father, which I have mixed feelings about. Let's not talk about anything else but love. It's a great number, and we can actually see some appearance of Grandma for once.
Let's not talk about anything else but love.
But it might disconnect Gomez's significant validation for Wednesday later on, if his role shifts across characters. But it would also work for the fact that Gomez also values love, which will have been consequential once Morticia realizes about Gomez's secret approval for Wednesday without telling her, deteriorating their sacred marriage because keeping secrets, as Morticia had earlier fantasized about her death just to get out of this situation. This version will also pin Lucas and Wednesday's relationship closely with Mal and Alice, relating to their craziness between poems and crossbows. And I guess that it articulates Mal and Alice's acceptance of Lucas's decision, for they sing in conjunction to their number. But with that, it puts greater emphasis on Gomez and Morticia and their internal conflicts, which introduces us to one of my favorite musical numbers, Not Today, a great reminiscence between Gomez and Morticia. Gomez had been the more casual side of the Addams, and seeing him feel desperate with this number repositions the type of conflicts within the musical. From Wednesday and Lucas gaining a marriage, to Gomez and Morticia potentially losing it. I can't gush enough about the instrumental pieces of this musical. And this tango seals the deal of its brilliance. The orchestra playing in the background while Gomez and Morticia make up for their differences through a dance. While it didn't cover much of the motifs used throughout the numbers, it's still a nice piece to appreciate the instrumental works in this musical. And you know, the ending numbers are the most emotional trenching songs, when it takes the closure along with all the characters being on stage. Move Toward the Darkness is an end number I'd rank higher than most musical end numbers. It creates a simple moral lesson to approach the unknowns in life and be willing to adapt to it. The delivery for this was one of a kind if it's your first time seeing it, feeling a little sense of enlightenment after Alice, Mel, Morticia and Gomez accepted Wednesday and Lucas as everyone joins in. It's a celebratory ending that's also motivating. And that's basically the Addams Family Musical. I didn't want to spoil too much of its song because I'm telling you, it's a very enjoyable musical. I'm sure you might have discovered some songs without watching the full show, and I recommend just searching out on the internet to watch it. It's been adored by high schools to perform this musical and so many other productions, with the fan favorite UK cast, Cameron Blakely, Cherry Hope Fletcher, Based. If you want to just listen to the song, these numbers alone are still amazing. If you're at a time of your life with drastic changes, this musical will entertain you with its topics and morals. I don't know, just watch or listen to it. It's Halloween. Go watch it.